Pat Kelsey and the Louisville Cardinals finally break the streak.
You are Locked On Louisville, your daily podcast on the Louisville Cardinals. Part of the Locked On Podcast Network, your team every day.
What's going on, everyone? Welcome into this special Sunday edition of the Locked On Louisville podcast. I'm your host, Dalton Pence. This is my fifth year covering the University of Louisville, third year hosting this show, and I want to take the time to personally thank you all for making us your first listen of the day. Just a reminder, the show is free and available on all streaming services 5 days a week, your team every day. Today's episode of the show brought to you by Gametime. Download the Gametime app, create an account, use the code LOCKEDONCollege for $20 off of your first purchase. On Saturday, the Louisville men's basketball team went down to Charlottesville and beat Virginia by 20. Really good victory for the team. Up and down performance, but the Cardinals were able to push ahead in the second half. We'll then explain how Pat Kelsey's team is starting to gel as we go through the early parts of January. And then to conclude the show, we'll discuss what two portal defensive back commitments will bring to the Cardinals secondary next year. Louisiana cornerback Justin Agu and Baylor safety Corey Gordon Jr. So a lot of good stuff to talk about. Hope everyone is staying warm. A lot of winter weather rolling through the Louisville metro area. Hope everyone is able to stay warm and, withstand the winter weather. But the last time that Louisville went on the road to Charlottesville and beat Virginia, Joe Montana led the San Francisco 49ers over the Denver Broncos in the Super Bowl. The Hubble Space Telescope was placed into orbit. UNLV beat Duke in the NCAA Men's Basketball Championship. The Reds beat the Oakland Athletics in the World Series. And the Fresh Prince of Bel-Air premiered for the first time on NBC. That year was 1990. Louisville had gone over 3 decades since last defeating Virginia on the road. They were able to snap that streak on Saturday afternoon by defeating the Cavaliers 70-50 early on in ACC action. Louisville now 10-5. They are 3-1 in conference play. And look, I know this Virginia team has faced an abundance of adversity over the past couple months. Tony Bennett stepped down abruptly right before the beginning of the season, and that meant that Ron Sanchez would have to step in as the interim. Ron spent 10 seasons under Tony Bennett on staff, was the associate head coach, but a lot of adversity before the season even started. Virginia isn't as good as they have been over the past decade. They were 8-5 coming into this performance, ranked 100th in the net rankings. So Louisville was favored by about 5.5 points. Discussing that Louisville beat Virginia shouldn't be something that you do a bunch of victory laps about. But when you consider that Virginia has been Louisville's kryptonite ever since they started playing almost a century ago, it makes this win a little bit sweeter. In fact, I would argue that there isn't another college basketball program out there that has had more success against Louisville than Virginia. In the 29 games that the Cardinals had played the Cavaliers, they were 5-24. 4-11 at home, 1-11 on the road, and 2-17 as a member of the ACC when they joined back in 2014. The last road win at Virginia was in the 1989-90 season. They won 72-56. They defeated Virginia on the Mango Mathian go-ahead shot in 2015. They also defeated Virginia back in 2020, the year that COVID canceled the NCAA tournament. Since that win in 2020, Louisville had lost the last 9 games in this series. And to be able to snap multiple trends, I think means more from a narrative standpoint than it might mean on the court. Now, don't get me wrong. Being able to go on the road and defeat a formidable opponent in conference play. I mean, you can't shake your head at that. That is significant. And I understand that this Virginia team isn't a great team. It was a team that you were supposed to beat. And you did. You handled business. You won by 20. I understand that they've been very vulnerable this season, right? I mean, Virginia hasn't been all that great. But it's more so being able to snap those trends, getting the win on the road for the first time in 35 years, snapping a 9-game losing streak to Virginia. Every time you see Virginia pop up on the schedule, Louisville fans just cringe because it's a frustrating game. And in the first half, it was pretty frustrating. It was what you would expect. Louisville didn't really get much going offensively in the first half. They did go into the intermission with a 5-point lead. They scored 32 in the first half to lead 32-27. But it felt like every time the Cardinals tried to pull away, like they got close to a 10-point lead, it was 7, 8, 9. Virginia would continue to claw their way back into the game. Now, credit to the Cavaliers for making some big-time shots. I mean, Isaac McNeely, Elijah Saunders made some pretty solid buckets. But I look at the Louisville side of things, and immediately after Louisville would get that lead to around 7-10, what would follow? Immediate bad shot selection, immediate turnovers, to the point to where you're not even making Virginia beat you. You're just hurting yourself. And it's another variation of the self-inflicted mistakes that we've talked about almost on a gamely basis for Louisville. So, bad shot selection and turnovers were preventing Louisville from really increasing this lead and putting Virginia in a spot where they probably won't be able to come back, because Virginia coming into the game was not a good offensive team, pretty respectable defensive team, but offensively, the only thing they did well was shoot the ball well from three. And even that was on a limited amount of attempts. And in the game against Louisville, Virginia really didn't shoot the ball well at all from deep. 19.2%. They went 5 of 26 from the three-point line. 37% from the field. They only shot 6 free throws. Again, Virginia is not a team that goes to the line a lot. Teams that play Virginia don't go to the line a lot. But it seemed like there was some anticipation fouls in that first half, like Chucky's reach-in foul, in quotation marks for those who aren't watching this or listening to this, with the quotation marks around it, because it was a clean steal that would have increased momentum, because at that point Louisville was up 7, could go up more than that, but instead Virginia got the bailout call, ended up getting a bucket and cutting the halftime lead to 5. But still, you had a halftime lead, and Louisville was a little bit more of the same in the second half, just continuing to try to push this game out of balance, and they weren't able to do so for a good portion of the second half. But there was a part in the final 20 minutes where the Cardinals were able to finally pull away. And it kind of comes down to, there was a moment where Sharma for Virginia cut the lead to 6 with about 10 minutes to go. Louisville ended up going on a key 5-0 run. Chucky Hepburn had a bucket. Rain Smith had a key 3-pointer. And at that point, Louisville was able to keep pushing out the lead. They got some key scores. They had some key defensive moments. They made their free throws. That was a welcomed sight, was Louisville making their free throws. They didn't really do that well against North Carolina. They shot 13 of 14 from the charity stripe, 92.9%. 7 of 19 from 3, 40, let's call it 44% from the field. Only had 9 turnovers, 15 assists to those 9 turnovers, so the positive assist to turnover ratio. And you did what you needed to do. Louisville out-rebounded Virginia by 17. They only allowed 6 offensive rebounds. So the things that Virginia didn't do well coming into the game, Louisville didn't allow them to do well throughout the performance on Saturday. They didn't rebound the ball well on an offensive standpoint. You limited the second chance opportunities. You didn't turn the ball over as much, and you're able to make some key shots. And we talked about, if Louisville was, I made a prediction that if Louisville scored 70 points in this game, that they were going to win. I didn't expect it to be a 20-point victory, so that's pretty nice to see the Cardinals be able to get this victory in blowout fashion. Now, Virginia's 4 of their 5 losses coming into the Saturday game were by double digits. So it was nice to see Louisville just handle business against a team that you knew they were better than, but with historically how good Virginia's been against Louisville, no matter who the coach is, I mean, Rick Pitino, Chris Mack, Kenny Payne, none of those coaches won on the road against Virginia. And for Pat Kelsey to get that win in his first year as head coach, I think that that's pretty special, even considering that Virginia might not necessarily be as good as they have been in years past. So looking at this, I felt like Aboubacar Traore had by far his best performance of the season. He's only played in a couple of games, but he was fantastic. Probably the MVP of the game for the Cardinals. We'll break down more of his performance in the next segment. You saw Javon Hadley with 11 points, which was good. Chucky Hepburn, once again, didn't really shoot the ball well from the field, but 10 points, 7 assists. His impact spanned well beyond the stat sheet. And then Rain Smith, 5 of 10 from the three-point line. Overall, just a really solid team performance. This team is starting to gel. Here on January 5th, Louisville's on a 4-game winning streak, and it hasn't always been impressive, but you're seeing this team continue to get better with each and every game. That's why when you lost in blowout fashion to Ole Miss, and you lost to Duke, and you lost to Kentucky, and you lost to Tennessee, and you lost to Oklahoma, I'm sitting and thinking, it's not ideal, but you got to give this team some time to gel and go through the rough patches. And it seems like you're starting to see some of the fruits that have arrived from the tough non-conference schedule. Louisville's starting to get better and gel as a team, and we'll go a little bit more in depth on that when we come back on this special Sunday episode of the Locked On Louisville podcast. From big upsets to game-winning drives, the NFL playoffs are better with FanDuel. Right now, new customers can bet $5 and get $200 in bonus bets guaranteed. That's $200 in bonus bets, win or lose. The FanDuel app gives you everything you need for live bets, same-game parlays, and so much more. If you go to the website, you can look at all of the betting lines around the NFL for Week 18 and heading into the playoffs. All you have to do is visit FanDuel.com to join today and get started with $200 in bonus bets. That's on FanDuel.com. Make this playoff season unforgettable with FanDuel, an official sportsbook partner of the NFL. Cardinal fans, thanks again for making us your first listen of the day throughout this early portion of 2025. Just a reminder, the show is free and available on all streaming services 5 days a week. Your team every day. Also, be sure to tune into Mondays with Dalton Pence. We'll be back on air on Big X Sports Radio from 6 to 7 p.m. tomorrow, Monday evening, on 1450 AM WXVW or 96.1 FM. Be sure to tune in to that. Like I said, Louisville is starting to gel. And according to Joe Lunardi's last 4 in, his most recent bracketology report that he released on Sunday, Louisville was in that group. They were, I think, the 4th team, or they were first team. So I think that they're like one of the last 4 teams in, obviously, but the 4th team, the 4th last team, if that makes sense. So Louisville rose up the net rankings with the win against Virginia. I think 10 spots. They're like 40th in the net now. They rose up about 10 spots in the KenPom ranking. So that win over Virginia, you might not necessarily be totally impressed by, the team that the Cardinals played. That's okay. Virginia wasn't good offensively, and this is going to be an up and down year for the Cavaliers. But the rankings might suggest that win is a little bit more impressive than you would have thought. Louisville is currently on a 4-game winning streak. They have a key week coming up against Clemson and at Pittsburgh. And what better time for the Cardinals to start to put things together than right now as you head into a pivotal stretch. We already talked about how the next 5 games before we started the 2025 calendar year, how the next 4 games or 4 to 5 games could be a telltale sign of whether or not Louisville would be in contention for the tournament or if they wouldn't. Now, they've won 2 out of the 4. They defeated North Carolina by 13. They defeated Virginia by 20. So not only are they beating these teams, and it might look close at times, but they're able to finish these games and play their best basketball at the end of the performances, and thus pushing out the margin of victory to look even better. That's really, really refreshing to see. You have a key week coming up, but it's nice to see the Cardinals start to gel more and more. Look, Chucky Hepburn has been fantastic all season, averaging 15.5 points a game, 5.5 assists, shooting the ball fairly decently outside of maybe the three-point line. This is his lowest three-point percentage of his career, just by a couple ticks. But this is also the most three-point shooting that he's done in his career, averaging 5 attempts per game, 2.5 steals, which is a career high. This is his best season of his career. He's been able to just be able to steady the ship as it goes through some choppy waters with the non-conference schedule that they had, the injuries that they've had to deal with Case and Pryor and Corin Johnson. This team could have just thrown in the towel, but instead they battled. They battled against Duke. They battled against Kentucky. And whatever happened in that Kentucky game, even though they lost, seems like it allowed them to turn a corner, saying, hey, look, we just took a top 5 team in the country down to the wire in their home arena. Let's be able to bounce back. And Louisville has done that. And they've won 4 straight games, 3 of those being against ACC teams. And those 3 ACC wins were all by double digits. So that's really nice to see. Chucky Hepburn has been the glue for this team. But Terrence Edwards, he had 7 points. Again, not a great shooting night for him. But one thing that I'm really impressed with Edwards over the past couple of games, we talked about how he wanted the defensive challenge of guarding RJ Davis, and he held him to a pretty lackluster scoring night. In this game against Virginia, he had 9 rebounds, which was extremely solid. He had a steal. He had 3 assists. So being able to affect the game in other ways than scoring. Same thing with Javon Hadley. 11 points for him, but 5 rebounds as well. You're seeing the versatile players that Louisville has needed to use that versatility, being able to put that on full display. So that's really awesome to see. Noah Waterman, not a great night for him. Only 2 points, but still playing good defense. And James Scott, over the past couple games, whenever Louisville barely beat Eastern Kentucky, I made a point of emphasis to say that the Cardinals needed to see more from James Scott. And what has he done in the past 2 performances? 11 points and 8 rebounds against UNC, 6 points, 9 rebounds, a block, 3 assists, and a steal against Virginia. So he might not be a guy that's going to score double digits every game, but I was impressed with his defense on Elijah Saunders. Felt like he didn't foul a ton, which was nice to see. That's been an issue when he was picking up those fouls against UK and FSU. He has had 1 personal foul in each of the past 3 games. So to be able to see the 6'11" sophomore continue to get better as the season goes along. And I think that you have to understand what that looks like. It's not going to look like him scoring 15 points a game every single night. It's playing consistently good defense around the rim, not allowing teams to get whatever they want from the interior, limiting the offensive rebounds, and being able to help the cohesiveness on the offensive side, help the flow, to be able to get the ball at the elbow, at the top of the key, and be able to facilitate it and distribute the basketball. And that's really nice to see from James Scott, just continuing to grow up in the ACC ranks. So nice to see that. Aboubacar Traore only played 16 minutes against Virginia, had tied for a team high 15 points, 8 rebounds, 1 steal, 1 block, 1 of 1 from 3, 60% from the field, 2 of 2 from the free throw line, and countless hustle plays. We know Traore came to Louisville not to be like a top 3 scoring option, but to be an opportunistic scorer, and also to be able to be your high effort glue guy, sort of like a Dwayne Sutton. We've talked about that reference, and Sutton was obviously the better shooter, but Traore's ability to defend multiple positions, defend the rim, even though he's only about 6'7", has a long wingspan. Interior defense has been a problem. Limiting the offensive rebounds has been a problem. Traore obviously helps with that. You just needed him to be serviceable on the offensive end. And you see why you can't write off a player who missed a good portion of the season. Like, people were writing him off after the first 2 games. And I'm sitting there like, guys, he's playing on a brand new team. And one of those games was against Tennessee, where no one looked good because Tennessee is a buzzsaw right now. So you got to give him time. And he didn't look good against Eastern Kentucky. Didn't look the greatest against North Carolina, but he had a turnaround performance against Virginia. And Louisville needed it. A couple of big rebounds, a couple of big buckets, the three-pointer, some key second chance opportunities that he was able to grant for Louisville. Made a ton of sense. It made a ton of an impact. Let me rephrase that. Kanai Roots had some good minutes. Rain Smith continues to be clutch for the Cardinals. 30 minutes, and he was 5 of 10 from the three-point line. If you can get that from Rain Smith more often than not, I mean, he has been such a blessing for this team. And you're starting to see the camaraderie build. Yes, shot selection struggles at times. Turnovers have their impact, but the team is better defensively. They're continuing to build the cohesiveness on the offensive end. So really, really excited to see Louisville take on Clemson and Pittsburgh, who look like, outside of Duke, the best teams in the ACC at the moment. So we're going to preview the Clemson matchup on tomorrow's episode of the show, just a heads up. And we will talk about how tough of a matchup that's going to be and why that could be a bad matchup for the Cardinals due to Clemson's style of play. But we'll conclude this Sunday episode of the show going back to the football side of things. Louisville got 2 defensive back portal commitments over the weekend. We'll discuss what both players will bring to the Cardinals secondary next season. We'll tell you all about it on the final segment of this Sunday edition of the Locked On Louisville podcast. Attending the new 12-team college football playoff games, it's an incredible experience that brings fans together like never before. The Final Four is coming up this weekend. Gametime has a new feature called Gametime Picks that makes getting tickets for events even easier. It filters out the fluff to show you only incredible deals on great seats, so you don't have to waste time searching through thousands of tickets. Recently, I used Gametime Picks to find tickets for the North Carolina-Louisville game on New Year's Day. Wasn't really feeling the greatest. Partied a little too hard on New Year's Eve and didn't really know if I wanted to go to the game or just watch it at home. I decided at the last minute that I wanted to go to the KFC Yum Center, found some tickets that were cheaper than any other service, and it made just a ton of sense. Take the guesswork out of buying tickets with Gametime. Download the Gametime app, create an account, and use the code LOCKEDONCollege for $20 off your first purchase. Terms apply. Again, create an account and use the code LOCKEDONCOLLEGE for $20 off. Download Gametime today. Last minute tickets, lowest price, guaranteed. It was pretty clear coming into January after the dead period of the college football transfer portal window that Louisville needed secondary help. Losing as many players as they have to the portal, to the draft, to graduation. They've only brought a couple in. And this weekend was going to be a big weekend for defensive back recruiting, and Louisville was able to pick up 2 commitments as of Sunday afternoon. Now, full disclaimer, there could be more. You never know. Portal commitments happen very quickly and out of the blue. So if something happens while you're listening to this or before this episode comes out, then you know that we'll obviously discuss it in a timely manner on the next episode or so. But as of right now, Louisville picked up 2 defensive back commitments, Louisiana cornerback Justin Agu and Baylor safety Corey Gordon Jr. We'll begin with the former. I believe it's pronounced Agu. AGU is Justin's last name. The Prairieville, Louisiana native spent the past couple of seasons with the Louisiana Raging Cajuns. Didn't play in 2022. 2023, he was a serviceable piece, and then 2024 continued to progress his game. 36 total tackles for the 6'1" junior cornerback and 4 pass deflections. Looking at the numbers, I would be led to believe that he has 2 years of eligibility remaining in college. Actually, he spent 4 years at Louisiana, so he would have been 21, 22. So he at least has 1 it's pretty weird how red shirts work. So he very well could have to. He might have to apply for a waiver. But a track star in high school, committed to the University of Louisiana in the class of 2021. Like I said, didn't make an appearance in any of his first 2 seasons, was able to have a breakout year this past season at quarterback, and he will be able to factor into the mix at cornerback in what's going to be a pretty notable competition in the offseason. You got some players like Jabari Mack, Rodney Johnson, who will also compete. Louisville right now doesn't have a penciled in starter at the cornerback spot. So I think that, Justin will be able to at least factor into the mix in terms of competing for that spot. Not a ton of film that you can find. I know that rankings don't always mean anything, but I think it gives you somewhat of a reference point. On 3, we obviously feel like there's a bias against Louisville with on 3, but it's the most reliable transfer portal rankings, in my opinion. Justin is ranked as the 1,610th best transfer overall, 191st best cornerback. So if you're just one of those people that looks at rankings and nothing else, you're probably not going to be moved. But again, Louisville needs many, many defensive backs. So I think that being able to continue to add players that could have multiple years of eligibility could be something that helps Louisville's case. The other defensive back that Louisville was able to bring in was from the Power 4 level, Baylor safety Corey Gordon Jr. Corey Gordon, the 6'2" safety from Oklahoma City, Oklahoma, was able to play in all 12 games in 2024. I think he made 3 starts at the end of the year. He led the team with 3 interceptions for a Bears team that went 8-5 and played in the Texas Bowl against LSU. I'm looking at, because you never know with players who have transferred with red shirts and stuff like that, but I could be wrong. I believe Gordon does have 2 years of eligibility, so I do like that Louisville is going after players with multiple years of eligibility so you can have that opportunity at consistency. Gordon visited Alabama recently in this cycle, was apparently going to maybe take a visit to California and maybe Nebraska. So there was some high-level interest in this player. Could be definitely a starter at the safety spot for the Cardinals in 2025. Was able to take a step forward from 23 to 24, 34 total tackles, 6 total pass deflections in 2 years, led the Bears in interceptions, like I said, and 2 tackles for loss in 2024 as well. So being able to add a Power 4 safety to the mix was really nice to see. According to On3, 946 best transfer and the 87th best safety. So again, you're looking for players that can fit what you're trying to do defensively. And if you're one of those people that just looks at rankings, you're probably not going to be impressed. But again, I go back to the point that Louisville desperately needs help in the secondary. And it's not just adding starting level players, but guys that can compete for depth. So Louisville able to just continue to add more defensive backs. I'm really intrigued by the cornerback competition. I think that if you made me go with my intuition, I'd say that Corey Gordon is probably a starter for the Cardinals safety spot in 2025. But again, we don't know. It's just nice to see Louisville bring in more players for defense because we know that they just need to bring in some players right now. So that is going to wrap up this Sunday edition of the show. Everyone have a great day. Have a great end of your weekend. Stay safe, stay warm, and we'll see you right back here tomorrow. Go Cards.